Ever had a toilet that just won't stop running? That constant hissing sound in the bathroom, water trickling into the bowl all day and all night, and your water bill creeping up higher and higher every single month? Here's the good news. Fixing a running toilet is one of the easiest plumbing repairs you'll ever do. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the complete process from start to finish. We're going to cover how to shut the water off safely, how to diagnose whether it's your flapper or your fill valve causing the problem, and exactly how to fix both. Plus, stick around to the end because I've got a bonus tip that'll help you prevent this from ever happening again, and it'll save you a nice chunk of money over time. Let's get into it. A running toilet is one of the most common plumbing problems in any home, and it's also one of the biggest water wasters. We're talking hundreds of gallons a month in some cases. The good news is you don't need to call a plumber for this. 1. With a couple of basic tools and about 15 to 20 minutes of your time, you can fix this yourself. So let's start by understanding what's actually going on inside that tank. When you lift the lid off your toilet tank, there are really only two main parts that cause a toilet to run. The first is the flapper. That's the rubber seal that sits at the bottom of the tank and covers the drain hole. When you flush, the flapper lifts up and lets water rush down into the bowl. Then it drops back down and seals everything off so the tank can refill. If that flapper is worn out, warped, or has any little nicks or cracks on the sealing surface, water is going to slowly leak past it and into the bowl. That forces the fill valve to keep topping off the tank, and that's what creates that running sound. The second part is the fill valve itself. That's the tall piece on the left side of the tank with the float attached to it. Its job is to refill the tank after flush and then shut off. Once the water reaches the right level, if the fill valve's diaphragm gets dirty or worn, it won't shut off properly, and water just keeps flowing. So when we're fixing a running toilet, we're really checking these two things, the flapper and the fill valve. That's it. Now, let's get to work. The very first thing you need to do before you touch anything inside that tank is shut the water off. Look behind your toilet, down near the floor. You'll see a small valve where the supply line connects to the wall. That's your angle stop. Most newer homes have a quarter-turn ball valve. You just turn the handle a quarter turn so it's perpendicular to the pipe, and the water's off. If you've got an older home, you might have a multi-turn gate valve. Just turn it clockwise until it stops. Now here's something I always tell people, and this is really important. After you turn that valve off, flush the toilet once to make sure the water actually stopped. The last thing you want is to disconnect a supply line and find out your shutoff valve doesn't work. Now you've got water spraying everywhere and you're scrambling to put things back together. So test it first. Flush the toilet. If the tank doesn't refill, you're good to go. If water keeps coming in, you've got a bad shutoff valve, and you'll want to address that before going any further. Once you've confirmed the water is off, grab a towel and lay it down on the floor right underneath the supply line connection. Even with the water off, there's always a little bit of water left in the line and in the fill valve. So that towel is going to catch any drips and keep your floor dry. Now go ahead and carefully lift the tank lid straight up and set it somewhere safe. I like to set mine on a folded towel on the floor, away from where I'm working. That porcelain is heavier than you'd think, and if you drop it or set it down on a hard surface the wrong way, it'll crack right in half. And good luck finding an exact replacement lid for your specific toilet. So treat it like it's fragile, because it is. With the lid off, you can see everything we're going to be working on. Now take your supply line and disconnect it from the bottom of the fill valve. You'll see the braided hose coming up from the angle stop and connecting to a nut on the underside of the tank. Use a pair of channel lock pliers and just loosen that nut. You don't need to go crazy with force here. Just break it loose, and you can usually finish unscrewing it by hand. A little bit of water is going to drip out. That's completely normal. That's just the water that was sitting inside the fill valve. Let it drain into your towel, then move the supply line off to the side so it's out of your way. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, you should know it's just a small sample of what I've put into my new guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It's packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let's continue. Now let's check that flapper, because this is the culprit about 70% of the time. Look down at the bottom of your tank. You'll see the flapper sitting right over the flush valve opening. What you want to do is run your finger along the bottom edge of that flapper, the part that makes contact with the flush valve seat. You're feeling for any roughness, warping, mineral buildup, or little cracks. Even a tiny imperfection on that sealing surface can let water sneak through. If the rubber feels stiff or doesn't have any give to it, that's another sign it's done. Flappers are made of rubber, and they break down over time, especially if you use those drop-in tank cleaning tablets. Those chemicals eat away at the rubber faster than you'd believe. If your flapper needs replacing, it's simple. Most flappers just unhook from two little ears on the sides of the flush valve, and then they unclip from the chain that connects to the flush handle. Slide the old one off and snap the new one right into place. One thing I always tell people is to make sure you buy the right flapper for your specific toilet. They're not all the same. Take the old one with you to the hardware store if you can, or look up your toilet's model number and match it. A universal flapper will work in a pinch, but a model-specific one is always going to give you a better seal. Once the new flapper is on, make sure it sits flat against the flush valve seat and that the chain has just a tiny bit of slack. About ½ an inch is perfect. Too much slack and the flapper won't lift high enough when you flush. Too little and it won't seal properly when it drops back down. If your flapper looked fine, then the fill valve is your problem. And don't worry, this is still an easy fix. Most fill valves have a diaphragm assembly at the top that you can clean or replace without swapping the whole unit. Here's how you do it. On the top of your fill valve, you'll see a cap with a small screw. Turn that screw counterclockwise and lift the cap up. Then give it a twist, and the whole top assembly comes apart. Inside, you'll find the diaphragm. It's a small rubber disc with a little pin or needle running through it. Pull that diaphragm out carefully and inspect it. What you're looking for is any debris, sediment, or mineral buildup. I've seen everything from tiny pebbles to sand to rust flakes jammed up in there. Even a small grain of sediment can keep that diaphragm from sealing properly, and that's all it takes to make your fill valve run nonstop. Rinse the diaphragm off under clean water. If it's really gunked up, use a little bit of soapy water and a soft cloth to clean it. While you've got it apart, look down into the body of the fill valve itself. If you see any debris sitting in there, here's a trick I use. Hook your supply line back up temporarily. Hold a rag loosely over the top of the fill valve and crack your angle stop open just barely. The water pressure will flush any junk right up and out. Just be ready with that rag so water doesn't spray all over your bathroom. Once everything is clean, reassemble the diaphragm exactly how it came apart. That little pin goes back in its spot, the rubber disc seats back down, and the cap twists and locks back on. Make sure it clicks into place securely. Now, if cleaning the diaphragm doesn't solve it, you'll need to replace the fill valve entirely. That's still not a hard job. You just unscrew the big nut on the bottom of the tank, pull the old fill valve out, and drop the new one in. When you set the new fill valve, match it to the same height as the old one. You already know that height worked, so don't reinvent the wheel. Make sure the rubber washer is on the bottom before you slide it through the hole, and snug that nut up nice and firm. Not gorilla tight, just snug. With your flapper replaced or your fill valve cleaned up and reassembled, it's time to put everything back together. If you disconnected the supply line, reconnect it now. Thread the nut on by hand first to make sure you don't cross-thread it. Then snug it up with your channel locks. You want it firm, but don't over-tighten. With brass or plastic fittings, over-tightening can crack them, and then you've got a whole new problem. Make sure your fill tube, that little rubber hose coming off the top of the fill valve, is clipped into the overflow pipe. That tube directs water into the bowl during the refill cycle, and if it's not connected, your bowl won't fill up properly after a flush. Now, for the moment of truth. Turn your angle stop back on slowly. I always say slowly because if something isn't connected right, you want to catch it as a small drip, not a full blast. Watch the supply line connection for any drips. Watch the bottom of the tank where the fill valve nut is. If everything's dry, you're in great shape. Let the tank fill up completely. The water level should stop about 1/2 inch to 1 inch below the top of the overflow tube. If it's too high or too low, you can adjust that float on your fill valve. Most modern fill valves have a screw or a clip on the side that lets you raise or lower the water level. Once the tank is full and the water stops running, wait a few minutes and listen. Complete silence is what you're after. No hissing, no trickling, no water movement at all. If it's quiet, you just fixed your running toilet. Go ahead and flush it once to make sure everything cycles properly. The flapper should lift, the water should rush into the bowl, the flapper should drop back down and seal, and the tank should refill and stop right at the proper level. Now carefully set that tank lid back on. Remember, easy does it with that porcelain. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them. First, if you still hear a slow trickle after replacing the flapper, the flush valve seat itself might be rough or corroded. Run your finger around the rim where the flapper sits. If you feel any pitting or rough spots, you can use a fine emery cloth to gently smooth it out. That usually does the trick. Second, If your fill valve keeps running even after you clean the diaphragm rubber itself might be too far gone. At that point, just replace the whole fill valve. They run about $8 to $12 at any hardware store and take about 10 minutes to swap out. Third, if water is leaking from the base of the tank where it meets the bowl, that's not your flapper or fill valve. That's your tank to bowl gasket, and that's a separate repair. Don't chase the wrong problem. Fourth, if the toilet runs intermittently, like it turns on for a few seconds every 15 or 20 minutes, that's called phantom flushing. It almost always means the flapper is leaking just enough to slowly drop the water level until the fill valve kicks on to top it off. A new flapper will fix that right up. Fifth, if you notice your fill valve making a loud vibrating or humming noise, that usually means debris is partially blocking the diaphragm. Clean it out using the method we covered, and that noise should go away completely. Now, for that bonus tip I promised you at the beginning. Here's something most people don't think about. Once a year, take 5 minutes and do a quick toilet maintenance check. Lift the lid, inspect your flapper for any signs of wear, check the chain length, and clean any mineral buildup you see around the fill valve and flush valve. If you're in an area with hard water, that mineral buildup is what kills these parts faster than anything else. I also recommend keeping one replacement flapper and one fill valve repair kit in your garage or utility closet at all times. They cost just a few dollars each, and when your toilet starts running at 11 o'clock at night, you'll be glad you have them on hand, instead of having to run to the hardware store the next morning while your water bill climbs. This simple habit will add years of life to your toilet parts and keep everything running smoothly. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I hope this helped you out. A running toilet is one of those things that seems like a bigger deal than it really is, and now you know exactly how to handle it. I'll see you on the next one.